What's up, everybody? It's the Common Sense Investor coming at you with another video. And in this video, we're going to talk about the Hycroft update you haven't heard about yet, okay? It's out there, people. It's on Straight Talk. What is Straight Talk? Do y'all remember when we tried to get Adam Aaron engaged with his YouTube channel? Well, Miss Diane has done exactly that, okay? She started Straight Talk over on Hycroft Mining's YouTube channel, okay? You need to go subscribe. You need to go watch Straight Talk, the first episode she uploaded 3 days ago, if you're a shareholder of Hycroft, because she talks about some important stuff. I'm going to go ahead and let her do the talking, but to let y'all know what I'm covering, number one, she talks about the timeline to production. Number two, she's going to talk about the share intel investigation. In case you didn't know, she broke the news to us about a month and a half ago. They had secretly hired share intel to do an investigation, and she talks about her results from the investigation and what she's allowed to say. But let me say this, because a lot of people are going to miss when she says it, so I want to say it now. She can't talk about the investigation, but 5 large firms. Listen to what she says when she mentions 5 large firms. Even though she can't talk about the investigation, something's coming up. I'll talk about that more because she's talking about putting them on notice, and I'll be telling y'all what that means later. But the stock buyback program was number 3. Then they get into the nuts and the bolts. Stock price manipulation. All right, you got to remember something. Miss Diane is different than Adam because Adam's never bought shares or hasn't bought shares in the last few fucking years. Miss Diane does, and we'll talk about that later. She has sold some for tax purposes and whatever. But she talks about price manipulation of their stock and why their stock is trading right now. Why isn't Hycroft mining gold right now? Why are larger institutions needed to begin production? And is Hycroft for sale? Number 7. So let's let Miss Diane do the talking. And I'll see y'all in the next video where I'll be giving you an update on what's going on with the 5K and 30-day challenge. So here's Miss Diane.
So let's get right to it. Let's start answering some of your questions, and I'll kick it off to Fiona to let me know what's up first.
Great. So getting started right off the top here. We've had so many amazing questions submitted ahead of the event, but don't forget that you can submit your question live by going into the question tab within the webinar platform. So please start piling those in. So first, can the investors get a timeline of events from now until real production?
That's a great question, and one we do get asked often. So we're as anxious as you are to begin the next phase of commercial operations at Hycroft. We have to complete the necessary work first, but the largest time-consuming component of that was just completed with the metallurgical work and the recoveries that were recently posted. And let me give you a sense of why these studies are so important. Had we gone into operations without completing all these necessary studies, first of all, a team like ours would never do that. It's a recipe for disaster. But secondly, we would have designed a plant based on assuming we would recover 80% of the gold and silver. Through the test work we did, we know we'll recover much more than that, 89% on the gold and 94% on the silver. So we would have left some of that gold and silver in the ground, and that means it would have left money outside of our investors' pockets. So it's critical that we get through these to understand the ore body. We also have learned through some of the work that we're doing that because of our high sulfur content, we can produce sulfuric acid as a byproduct. Sulfuric acid is vitally important in the lithium industry, so we can help feed into that green economy. So this is the purpose of all these studies, to get the optimum project generating the best economic value for our shareholders. Now, we have a timeline in our corporate presentation, and we'll be able to give you specifics around the timeline to production once our PFS, our pre-feasibility study, is completed, and that will be late in the second quarter of next year. Once that is done, we'll have all the economics around the project. We'll have all of the work completed of how we're going to build this mine. And then we will be able to give you the timeline and actual production. But keep in mind, the mills that we need to order do have to be constructed and installed. But our plan would be to start up the heap leach operation several years before the milling operation, because we want to complete the studies, do the heap leach portion, and then transition directly into sulfide milling. So lots of work going on and a lot of results and information coming out on that timeline in our PFS, which will be late second quarter of 2024.
Great, thank you. Okay, second question. Would you be able to share any info into Share Intel's investigation into our stock? We know that's been on everyone's minds, so let's address that right off the top.
Sure. There's only so much we can say on the Share Intel front. I guess it's kind of good news, bad news. We knew there were significant trading imbalances in our shares, and we're still seeing them today by 5 very large trading houses. The next step is to put them on notice, and then we'll hope that they will stop doing this in our shares, because it definitely hurts the retail investor, and we want to put an end to this short selling in the market. But suffice it to say that we take this very seriously, and we always want to protect our shareholders' investments, and stay tuned on that. But we're doing all the right things, even though we can't talk about it in the public market.
With $100 million on cash on hand and excellent drill results, why hasn't there been a corporate buyback of the stock?
Well, we do talk about corporate buyback of stock, certainly, but you normally see share repurchases with companies that are generating cash, and so they're using some of those revenues to buy back shares. For us, in these particular markets where it's very challenging to raise money, we believe that at the moment, and always subject to discussion, and we have this discussion ongoing at our board level, but at the moment our dollars are best spent at the Hycroft mine for developing that value, so that when the markets do turn, we're in a position to reap the benefits of that higher commodity price environment. But it is something that we're mindful of and is an ongoing topic of conversation.
Great, and continuing on the vein of stock and I guess performance in the market, lots of questions we're getting about why such a disconnect between how much money we have in the bank, 100 million in cash, versus the market cap that we have for the company. Any thoughts on that?
Oh, I've got a lot of thoughts on that. We're as shocked as anybody with our share performance. I mean, we're trading below cash, for crying out loud. We do have debt on our balance sheet, and we do want to address that, but it's not due until late in 2027. When this group of investors came to join us, and most of our investors over the last year and a half, we were still producing gold and silver. So we have since depleted the ore that we had on the heap leach pads. So we have completed recovering the gold and silver on those pads. And now we're in a bit of this hiatus period where we're ramping up for the next phase of commercial operations. So it's not uncommon to sort of see a re-rating of share prices based on being a producer to then not being a producer, while everybody's anticipating when you're going to become a producer again. I'm about to air a video I did on the life cycle of a mining stock to show you how stocks perform at various stages of the production and development cycle. So that's coming out very soon, so I'm anxious for you to see that. But if you look at the share price performance that Fiona just put up, you'll see that Hycroft really has traded right in the middle of our peers. And some have, we're really right about the median there. So we are faring fairly well. It doesn't feel good for those of us who have lost a lot of value in our portfolios. I understand that. We've also seen this morning that gold reached a 9-month low. That invites the technical traders and the algos to start shorting the market. We're seeing treasury yields high and they're continuing to rise. We're seeing the dollar strong, and we're seeing, the Feds, being fairly hawkish on the rates. So all of those things leave a little uncertainty for the gold market, but the fundamentals for gold are extremely bullish. And we were just at the Precious Metals Summit conference, where a lot of the conversation was about how gold is poised to break out. Look, we've seen these cycles many times before. I've personally been through 4 of these in my career. And the inflation and the real estate declines on new housing, all of these things together are setting up for a very big rally in gold and certainly silver in the precious metal side. So we're optimistic about it. The key thing for us is we keep our head down, we do our job, we advance Hycroft, we get it ready, because these markets will turn, and when they turn very quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It's an ongoing conversation for all of us in the mining space, and particularly in precious metals. But the long-term outlook is really positive for precious metals, and the market does reward that long-term outlook. So that's what we're here for. It's a long-term game. So here's a question that kind of ties back to where we started the conversation. So maybe we should go back to it a little bit and reinforce kind of what our plan is. Why are you not mining today?
So the last operation was the heap leach portion, which is the near surface oxides, which goes to the heap leach. As you go deeper, you start to get into the sulfide ore, and that requires a different technique. It's unfortunate that this work hadn't been done a few years ago, but when our team came on, we recognized that this is the transition of where the mine was going, and we better be prepared. So in an ideal world, we would have gone from heap leaching immediately into milling operations. We have a gap now because this management team came in a couple of years ago, identified the best process that needed to be utilized at Hycroft. And so now we are doing the work to get it to the next level of operations. But as I mentioned, we still have quite a bit of heap leach material, about 3 years worth on the property. We wouldn't want to start it up today until we know that at the end of that 3 years, we can go straight into the sulfides. And we need to make sure we get the PFS, the pre-feasibility study, completed in the second quarter of next year. That'll allow us to understand, what kind of mills we need, what size of mills, how long they're going to take to order, and how long we'll need to construct. And then we can back in that timeline and start up the heap leach portion so that we can transition directly into sulfides. So the nice thing to think about, though, is we are very well advanced from most developers. We have permits for heap leach and milling. We have phenomenal infrastructure on site, and we're way ahead of the power curve. So we will be able to reach the production status as a developer much quicker than you normally would if we were starting with land that A, didn't have permits, or B, didn't already have existing infrastructure on site. So we're anxious too. So we're pushing it as fast as we can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. While also taking it, back to, as you say, first principles, and making sure that we're building a mine that's appropriate for the deposit that we have to mine at this point in time. That's also really important, and you always stress that point.
Yes.
So are there any large capital investments needed in order to process the ore, given all what you've just said?
Well, we will need to purchase the mills. And once we understand the size of the mills, how many of them that we'll need, then we'll be able to put cost factors around that, and that will be disclosed within our PFS as well. But at the moment, we have not finalized quotes and those things.
Okay. Is Hycroft looking to be acquired, or would you like to run this operation for a while?
I love that question. So we have the team to build and run this operation and multiple operations. So this would be the 14th startup of some of our team, and working all around the world. And we have an exemplary track record of generating very good value from the projects that we've managed. What we look at when we talk about M&A activity, merger and acquisitions, is we do what's in the best interest of the shareholders. So if someone were to come in wanting to acquire Hycroft and they're willing to pay a price that we feel would take us longer to achieve, or it's the best thing for our shareholders, then we will take that to the shareholders to vote on. That's our fiduciary duty. For us, we work for you. So you're the owners of the company. And we are not an entrenched management, although we love what we're doing. But by a perfect example is our last company, Remarco Minerals. We were in construction. We were fully financed. We had massive shareholders, and so a larger company came in and put an offer on the table, and we took it to the shareholders to vote. And so, you know, we want to do what's right by the shareholders. That is our duty and responsibility as a board member. As far as acquiring other projects, we've been very clear that in our corporate presentations that we are looking at strategic alternatives. There are opportunities that are created in markets such as those that we're in when share prices are down. There's very, very good assets with high value that are trading at a discount to that value, Hycroft being one of them. And so when we look at these opportunities, when we look at our position of having a very, very solid balance sheet and treasury, and other companies really struggling to raise money in this market, then we think those are opportunities where we can create additional value for our shareholders, bring other projects in that might allow production as we're continuing to work on Hycroft and bring it online. And so we're open to anything that creates value for our shareholders. And that's what we've demonstrated through all of our careers.